In this video, we're going to take a look at activity 3.1.2 basic outputs programming using VEX v5 and with the robot brain and VEX code v5. So here we have to start off, we have a screen with our test bed to be able to record what actions we're going to be able to have going on. And then we've also got VEX code here in the background. So as you look at activity 3.1.2, we can go ahead and we can take a look at that. The first section, what I would call part 1, is dealing with controlling LEDs. So here they talk about what are some uses, as well as exploring the basics of our program design. For example, our event handler, the one that shows up by default in VEX code, as we saw, was when started. And we can have some other different event handlers that'll get started as we do the same thing. So what they want us to do is they want us to write our first program by turning an LED on and then downloading and practice running that to the particular program. And then once we're done, they want us just to get familiar with VEX code on how to get rid of blocks and things like that. So the LED is a type of output device on our test bed, and we're able to see what kind of output that we're able to control. So I'm going to go back into VEX code v5. This is from the motor and sensor setup. I saved this automatically as the VEX v5 testbed template. So when I click on the icon of the smart port, you're going to see here are the different motors and sensors that are here in this particular device. So I'm going to go ahead and collapse this menu. I can go ahead and move this back over. And what we're going to do is, as we go through and get started here, is we already have our event handler set up. And before I get going and doing anything else, I'm going to go ahead and go to File, Save As, and rather than rewrite or overwrite my testbed template, I want to go ahead and put in here, and I'm going to create an activity 3.1.2 folder, which I already have some of these parts already kind of saved. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my main level here. I'm going to create a new folder called Lesson 3.1 Machine Control VEX v5. And inside of this folder, I'm going to create another new folder, a subfolder called Activity 3.1.2. And then inside of here, I can name the file Activity 3.1.2, and I'm going to call this part 1, since this is the first kind of part, or if you want to give it, the name of what it may be. So I'm going to go ahead and say save. You're going to see the file name up here will change, and it'll say saved. Now, there's going to be some tricky information with as we go on. Process that we're going to follow in order to keep from having to redo the motor and sensor setup every single time. So what I like to do is, especially as you move from part to part, I'll kind of cover that in the next video that we have going on. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the looks category. So when you're looking for various blocks or anything like that, you can either find it by the category on the left side. By clicking on it, it'll take you to the different sections and that are color coded. So like here, we're going to look for the looks, and I'm going to find the set LED on block, which I can grab and then drag over. And then when I get close, I can either set it here, or I can have it snap to the bottom, which you get an audible click whenever it connects. And we can, from the contextual menus, if we have more than one LED, then we can always change it, or we can change it from on to off. So we're going to have it say set LED on, and that's going to be our program. So up here, if your robot brain is connected, it'll show up in green, and it'll show a brain name as well as what team number, if it has one, and an operating system in which that it checks to see that everything's up to date. So up here, I'm also going to click on download. And when I go to download, you'll notice by default it is set to slot 1. If I want to keep this program or keep multiple programs and save to various slots, I can select a new slot, and there are 8 available slots on the brain or spaces in the brain's memory to hold a program. So here you'll notice it'll say saving and saved. It does have an autosave feature, much like a Google Docs or Google Sheets kind of program. And what I can do is now I'm going to hit download. It'll compile, download the user project, you'll see on the actual brain itself, let me take away the, and then let me turn off this light here, that way you can see that. So you'll see here you have a run or anything like that. So you can run and by pressing on this as well. However, for the sake of, for these videos and everything, I'm gonna go ahead and turn this light back on. And we can go through and click run up here in the VEX Code program as well. So what you're gonna see is up here at the top, our LED turns on. Your servo motor may move a little bit. Usually it goes into a home position once it does so. And it may move or make a little bit of noise. Don't worry about that. That just goes through and works from there. So once I go through and get done, I can hit stop. And I can hit stop there. Any changes that I were to make within this program, I could go through and kind of do that. Now this is part 1 already saved. So I want to, and this is really all we have to do for part 1. So here's what I'm going to set up in order to go to part 2, which is called spinning ahead, or also what I consider to be controlling a servo motor. So before I go through and move on to part 2, before I make any changes, I'm actually going to go to File, Save As, and then here in my menu, I'm going to go ahead and just change this part 1 to part 2 and hit Save. Now, because of the autosave feature, if I were to delete this program, it would save this, and if I hit save, it would save a blank program. So now I've moved on to part 2, and part 1 is still going to have this block in it. So I usually like to do that to kind of keep moving forward. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the block. Either I can drop it over here. You'll see with the little hand icon, I get an X. When I release, it'll get rid of the block. If I were to undo this, I can also right click and say delete the block. Or I can do a 2-finger click on a Mac as well to be able to delete or do some of the other options like duplicate or disable the block. So I can delete that one there. And now I'm ready for, in the next video, we'll take a look at part 2 and be able to get ready to start setting up our program.